When you're looking to write a song, sometimes you get stuck in chord progressions and well, I've heard this before, I want to use this chord progression, I want to use that chord progression, I sound too much like this artist, sound too much like that other artist. Well, at the end of the day, everybody ends up sounding like everybody else. We only ever have 12 notes to share amongst us, so after a while, you're going to start sounding like somebody else. That's not a disadvantage. That's an advantage. And in today's song, Billie Eilish, Wish You Were Gay, she goes back and pulls up a chord progression, a 4-chord progression that has been around forever. And sometimes looking backwards is the best way to look forwards. Let's get after it. There are 4 things in here we're going to check out. We're going to check out Melody Writing 101. We're going to check out attention to details in production, because some of the things that are happening here, very small, very subtle, very cool. We're going to talk about the concept of stereo. 3 ways to do it, or at least couple of ways to do it, and some of them quote right and some of them quote wrong. And we're also going to look at the chord progression itself, which is really, really old and really, really good. So let's get after it. By the way, if you're wondering, that's not a new catchphrase. I borrowed that from CNN, Mr. Cuomo's favorite catchphrase. Let's get after it. Been watching a lot of politics, as I imagine some of you might have been as well. But today, we're not doing politics, we're doing music. Billie Eilish, Wish You Were Gay. So here's the intro, inclusive of melody with piano. I want you to take a listen to the piano melody, listen to what it does in the verse, and listen to what it does in the chorus, and that's going to be our first thing up for debate today. So you probably saw me pointing to things that are worthy of attention in there. No, it was not my best melody playing. It was not my best piano playing. I put it together all of about 7 minutes ago. But that doesn't matter. We're going to take a look at it, and there's something really brilliant in here. So what we're going to look at first of all, is the melody itself. Now, she does a technique that you can borrow and exploit in a number of different ways. If you've heard me talk about melody before, you know that I talk about things like runs and jumps. When do you go in a scale, and when do you go in jumping notes? There are times to do one, there are times to do the other. In this case, she has it sectionally. In the verse, or at least in the preamble, it's all based on runs. So you saw it dancing on the screen there. It's every note sequential, every note next to each other in the scale. Now, I haven't told you what key we're in. I haven't told you what scale we're in. You might think we're in the key of A minor because the first chord is A minor. You might think we're in the key of D major because the second chord is D dominant 7. It's not. And then the third chord is G major. You might think, well, that's the key. And then you might also think that the fourth chord, E minor, is the key. I'm going to leave it to you to decide for yourself. I'm calling this in G major. Now, in the key of G major, we have this F sharp. And all of the notes of the melody, there's home. All of the notes being used are in G major. So the verse is all about runs. Note, 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 next to each other all the time. If we skip over to the chorus, she employs jumps. Starting on B, jumping down a third, and then up 1 tone, jumping down a fourth, jumping up a third, a fourth, a note, and then a fourth. So it's mostly jumps. Verse, runs, chorus, jumps. Now, while we're here, let's just take a look at the chords for a moment. Because I said at the beginning that sometimes to look forward, you have to look old. or you look backwards, okay? Look at the old songs. And this progression, if you want to think of it, let's assume we're in the key of G major, okay? There's home. The first chord is A minor. So A minor in the key of G is 2. So there's a 2, 3, 4, 5, D dominant 7. You've seen me talk about dominance before. The dominant chord almost always means 5, and it wants to go down to 1, and then down to 6. Now, the concept of the 2-5-1 is pretty old. It's almost as old as the concept of the 5-1. 5 dominant, wanting to fall a fifth to the 1. Now the question is, why the 2? So you got 1, 5, and then the A up here is actually the 2 down here, but now you have a 2, 5, 1. Notice they're fifths. So this is the circle of fifths in chord form. You have the 2, which is really the 2, the 5, and then the 1, all the way down here. And then the question is, well, what's the E? That's not a fifth. It doesn't belong in there. But actually, it does. Because E is actually the fifth above A. So it's what's really known as a 6-2-5-1. And if I played it in that order, you would have... which is a million songs. So it's really a 6-2-5-1, just done 2-5-1, and then the 6. So all of it is circle of fifths. Okay? Again, the key ingredient being this dominant in the second chord. That's the 2, there's the 5, and there's the 1. Okay? You also hear it out here in the verses if I were to solo these chords. No different than what we were hearing before. Okay? What's really happening is instead of just an A minor, it's really A minor 7, but the 7th is voiced down here. And then the D7 properly is this way. It's respelled. So look how close we are. A minor to D7. There's very little finger motion. To G major 7. Very little finger motion. To E minor 7. The hands really never have to leave this territory. And if you can just remember the notes, you can do all of it right here. Okay, starting, you could have. I mean, it might be easier to do it this way, but that's not how they did it. Okay, the point is, it's still a 2-5-1-6, 2-5-1-6, except instead of being in triads, it's in sevenths. A minor 7, spelled this way. D dominant 7th, second inversion. G major 7, root inversion. And then E minor 7, root inversion. Okay, so recapping. Melody runs, jumps, runs, jumps. Chords all the way through the song. 2-5-1-6, 2-5-1-6, 2-5-1 in the key of G. Let's talk about the guitars for a moment. Okay, I did a couple of experiments. Now, in the original, the guitar has a kind of stereo effect up to it. You can distinctly hear that there's something happening in the left and there's something happening in the right. They're not exactly the same, but they're pretty damn close. And I thought it would be fun to explore, as a side note, the conversation about stereo. And so I am going to compare for you really two techniques, the dual mono as stereo, and then mono becoming stereo. Now, let's take a time out. stereo is a word that we don't all have the same definition for. Okay? And the true answer to stereo is unique information in left and right speakers. Okay? When you're discussing recording something in stereo, it's a single source, a piano, a drum set, a guitar, harpsichord, or whatever it is. It's a single source in one performance with multiple microphones, usually, capturing unique information for the left and for the right. And that creates an image that takes up more than just mono. It kind of moves through the space. Now, I didn't do that. I have an acoustic guitar that I recorded, and I didn't mic it in stereo, but I wanted it to be stereo. So there are multiple ways to do this, some of them better than others, and I'm going to show you two of them. One, my favorite, which is I think the one that they did or she did in her song, is to simply record the sucker twice. It's not one instrument, one performance. It's one instrument, two performances. And this is really dual mono. Okay, you got a mono over there and a mono over here. The result is stereo, but it's not a stereo recording. Just want to get that detail in there. So this is the acoustic on the left. And this is the acoustic on the right. Panned a little left and panned a little right. And together, now the playing is pretty tight, if I don't say so myself. It's mostly in really good time. It's not perfect time, but it's in really good time. And the overall impression is that it feels like one thing happening. It's just that it's happening in two speakers, with just little bits of timing uniqueness. I always prefer this technique because the stereo result is fluid. The differences between the performances are small, but they're infinite. Right? There's no way to get it perfect in one note, one strum, one hit. It's going to be just a little bit differently off from the hit before and after it. So you get this kind of nice analog, slight discrepancy between the left and right, and it feels organic. Now, in comparison to that technique, we have this technique. But let me actually show you what I did. I'm currently using Helix native software, which is from Line 6. They're a guitar technology company, and Helix is a brand new, well, not brand new, it's been around 5 years or so. It's a hardware unit that is one of the smartest guitar processors I've ever seen and heard. It's quite brilliant and sounds fantastic. And they have a software-only version of it. Now, if you're just looking for delays and distortions that are just generic, what comes with Logic is probably good enough. If you're looking for something detailed and realistic, like you want to have something that actually sounds like a Vox AC30, you get this. And I think it's about $3.99 software, and it's fantastic. Now, I'm not using barely any of it right now, but one of the things that I really dig about it is that on this single signal path, I've got a compressor, but then I've also got a split, and I've got delay on one side only with a unique output. So this one goes, this one will be going left, and then this one will be going, you can see it's going right. And the right one has the delay, and the left one does not. So this one is the one performance I made, and that is the same performance I made, delayed by a certain time frame. The one I have printed here, this guy we're going to listen to, is I think 72 milliseconds. Now again, that's a mono track over there, and 72 milliseconds later, the same track is over there. And this is what you do when you only have one track. Okay, some people take the track and then they copy it and then they pan it and they call it stereo, and it's not stereo. You haven't done anything unique in the left and right speakers. Here on this track, I tweaked the settings from 72, which I think is kind of a slapback, feels very 50s, which, being that this is a 2-5-1-6-2-5-1 chord progression, and it's kind of old, that doesn't not work. It kind of works for me. And here, all I did was change it to, I think, let me double check, I think about 40 milliseconds here. 44 milliseconds. Sounds like this. It's a little tighter, okay? Not quite as bop, 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 brup, brup, but it's still one performance becoming stereo through delay only. Okay, so that was the third thing that I thought was kind of interesting about the way that she put this song together. Now, last concept, details. I want to draw your attention to the drums for a moment, and particularly in the chorus. And I'm just going to say which one of these is not like the other. And I'll give you a hint. Listen to the snare. Only the first bar doesn't have the extra snares. I don't know why, but it's cool. It's these little details that just, you don't hear it the first listen. You'll hear it the third, the fifth, the ninth, the 29th listen. You'll be like, wait, has that note been there the whole time? Yes. Yes, it has. Billie Eilish, Wish You Were Gay. 251-6251. When's a run and when's a jump in the melody? What's stereo, what's dual mono, and what's stereo? Details. Details, details, details. Hope you enjoyed it. Remember, you can always run your songs past me, mentorship sessions, book them one-on-one. I'm getting booked fairly regularly, and it's been a lot of fun. I've had customers now from 40 different countries. Last weekend I was working with a gentleman in Russia, someone in Australia, and then later on someone in deep in South America. So not just here in the States. It's been a blast, and had France also. It's been a blast. It's really interesting to hear how people sometimes watch the videos, learn the lessons, and then implement the lessons and bring it back to me and say, so how did I do? And sometimes I'm like, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly right. And other times I'm like, well, yeah, no, not quite. So enjoy the lessons. Take from them what you can. If you're not sure if you're doing it right or just want some extra help, remember, I'm one of 50 people in the Pyramid Mentorship Network. You're welcome to come work with any of us. We love working with people. Till then, folks, enjoy, and I'll see you later.
If you're an aspiring music producer and ready to evolve your sound, find out more about our San Francisco ground campus, online classes, and one-on-one mentorships at pyramid.com.